Hey, what's up, fight fans? Welcome back for another fight card prediction. We're going to be breaking down UFC 222 from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, as Cris Cyborg defends a UFC Women's Featherweight Championship against Yana Kunitskaya. And in the co-main event, we have an absolute unbelievable matchup between Frankie Edgar and Brian T-City Ortega. This was supposed to be Frankie Edgar against Max Holloway. Holloway got an injury and had to be pulled from the card. So this is a fairly kind of short notice fight. I think Cyborg was originally penciled in for UFC 224 down in Brazil, but they needed a main event for this card. Personally, I would have went 5 rounds Frankie Edgar against Brian Ortega. That sounds better to me than Cyborg v Kunitskaya as a pay-per-view main event. Frankie Edgar and Brian Ortega, I just think it's a whole different fight across the 5 rounds, but it is what it is. Overall, solid. It's a solid card. There is 3 or 4 matchups that really catch my interest, and I'll probably talk about them more than any other fights on here, and we'll get to that in a second. As always, please subscribe, like the video, leave your comments below, leave your picks below, and let me know what your feelings are for this card, and just if there's any spots that jump out to you betting wise or whatever. Coming off a fairly decent week last week, I think I went 8-4. Couple of little sloppy picks. Russell Doan's a bad pick. It's probably my worst pick I've had this year. But I had a few good picks come through with Marion Renault. Latifi I thought was a good pick. And Jeremy Stephens turned out to do the business, which I thought it would, even though it was a little bit controversial with how that fight finished. As always, you can follow my podcast, MMA Huddle, on Twitter. I recorded that earlier on. It'll be out later in the week, I believe. We're basically talking about UFC 222, answering some questions, and so on. So if you can, go subscribe to us on YouTube, on Twitter. We're across all social medias there. So I'm going to get into this fight card, and fairly solid card. The rest matchups I am really looking forward to seeing. Starting off in the light heavyweight division, we have Jordan Johnson against Adam Milstead. I totally forgot about Adam Milstead. I know he came in as a UFC heavyweight, faced Chris De La Hoya, showed some really fine hands in that fight and put the big guy down. I thought when I was watching that fight, I thought, you're made for the UFC 205 division. He wasn't a big heavyweight. I thought there was a lot of muscle mass that he could lose to get down to 205. And he won that fight regardless. So he came in here, won his UFC debut, then got matched up with Curtis Razor Blades, and there was like just a contrast in size. Curtis Blades is a real heavyweight with power of a real heavyweight and just unbelievable grappling ability. And for the first 7-8 minutes of that fight, Curtis Blades absolutely ragdolled. And I'm not kidding you, ragdolled Adam Milstead. He was thrown around pretty much like he was doing to Mark Hunt, but just worse. And then he proceeded to blow his knee out, and he's had to get big surgery on that. So he's making his comeback here, down at 205, against another guy with a kind of wrestling background who can do that type of thing in Jordan Johnson. A guy that not many people really talk about, but I think he's got some talent and skills that could make him a pretty solid fighter, I must admit. I think he's one of those guys that will go under the radar, but he can win fights in this division against probably better people up on the UFC kind of rankings, so I think he can beat people up in there. Workman-like guy, doesn't really stand out too much for his striking. I think he really does that to enter into wrestling, strategic wrestling, pretty much get the guys to the ground, blanket them, hit them with enough ground and pound to really keep the fight there where he is most dominant. I think Milstead, to his credit, can, with the drop down, I think he will have the kind of core strength to maybe stop being taken down a few times, but I do see Jordan Johnson getting down enough to win rounds. So it's kind of that clear striker grappler kind of thing. That's how I see going in this fight here. Milstead, I think, has the advantage on the feet. I think that Jordan Johnson in the clinch with the grappling situations is the better fighter there and can get takedowns and can dictate where the fight kind of goes, and he can win rounds through that. So I'm going to go with Jordan Johnson. I think it's a close fight though. I'm not counting out Adam Milstead. I've seen a lot of people pretty heavy on Jordan Johnson. I think it's the right side to be on, but I've seen some people like super confident in this guy. I just don't see it that much, but I think he is a good chance to win this fight here. So I'm going to go Jordan Johnson via a decision there. Bantamweight division. This is the fun fight, intriguing fight. Brian Caraway faces off against Cody Stamann. Interesting, when I first heard this, I thought that's a really good matchup, really good matchmaking, especially for a guy still pretty new to the UFC against a guy in Brian Caraway, who's a veteran and is extremely tough, and he's looked really good since he came off the Tough Show, no doubt about it. I think he's made improvements. He was a little bit of a mental head case there, where he would get in his own head and he would beat himself before he even get into a fight, and he'd be scared in certain situations. That's turned around. He's shown that he's a quality fighter, a tough fighter, and he's a hard guy to look good against as well. Won his last two fights, outstruck Eddie Wineland, which was a surprising thing, and then he beat Aljamain Sterling in May 2016. So he's had a long layoff. He's had some personal things to deal with. Obviously, him and Misha have separated. He had his coach passing away, so that's a big thing as well. But he's a hard guy to look good against, this Brian Caraway. Doesn't really stand out too much for anything, but is pretty decent at everything, and it's just a tough veteran now. Cody Stamann came into the UFC against Terrion Ware up at 145. That was a tough fight. We got put together like a week before the fight card, and I thought he looked okay. I thought he looked really good. That you could see that his gas tank was not where it could be, his cardio and so on, but did enough to win that fight. Terrion Ware seems to get all the kind of up and coming good guys. He's got Tom Duquesnoy in London next month, so that's an awkward one as well. And he had Sean O'Malley. But Cody Stamann, I think he's an all-around solid fighter. I think he's striking. I think he's got faster hands. I think he's got more variety with his strikes. I think he's got better footwork, and I think he's the more athletic fighter. I think he can mix it up. I think that's what he will try and do. Is he will try and mix it up and win the fight through that. He can get takedowns. I just think he has to be careful, because Brian Caraway, I think, has a good control to his game, and it's just a tough, like I say, tough guy. This is another one of these fights that people are kind of shitting on Brian Caraway a little bit, saying he's not that good and so on and so on. He's tough. He's a tough veteran. He will do whatever he can to try and win fights. I think it was the Asun Sao fight where he kind of fish hooked him in that one, or it might have been the Eric Perez fight actually. So he will do whatever it takes to win a fight. So with veteran guys with a lot of experience against better opposition than what Cody Stamann has faced, you have to be careful with stuff like that. But like I said, Cody Stamann has wrestling, has decent striking, is the more athletic guy. I think he's the stronger guy, but he just has to put it all together. I was impressed with him in the Tom Duquesnoy fight, I'll be honest with you. He started off really slow, was looking at the clock and was like, I didn't like what I seen. Rounds 2 and 3, he blitzed through Tom Duquesnoy, and that really impressed me. I'm going to go Cody Stamann. I'm going to go via a very close split decision. I see this being a very close fight. I see him getting takedowns, but I see him being the better guy on the feet. But I do see Brian Caraway potentially taking a round off this guy, maybe even 2. So I'm going to go a split decision for Cody Stamann there. Mike Pyle against Zach Otto is a UFC Fight Pass headline fight. Mike Pyle came out today and announced that he was going to retire. This was going to be his final fight. 42 years old, he's been around a long time, but he has taken a hell of a lot of damage recently. He is coming off like a 16-month break after getting brutally knocked out by Alex Garcia, got brutally knocked out by Alberto Mina beforehand. One of those guys who in the gym I think is a killer, and a lot of fellow fighters that train with this guy will tell you that he is incredible. It doesn't really transform into his potential, doesn't really transform into the UFC cage, which is a little bit of a shame, because I've heard Matt Brown say that. I think Brad Tavares, another guy, saying it's just not transferred over to the UFC cage, which is a little bit of a shame. But he is a guy that's been around a long time, and he's pretty short-born at this point. His chin's not there, so you have to be careful. He has to be careful of Zach Otto. Now, Zach Otto is not really a power puncher. I don't think he's really overall that good of a fighter either. But these are one of these spots where I think you have to target that veteran, kind of like what Alex Morono did with Josh Burkman, and put him out of there, because I think if you hit the chin quick and early, these guys just crumble. And that's kind of how I see this fight going now. Mike Pyle, you have to be careful when you get to the ground with this guy. I do think he is very crafty down there, and you just have to be careful, because I just think he's very good on the ground. From what I've seen in some of his grappling matches as well that I've seen that are on YouTube, he's got some skills down there. Zach Otto, I think, is just, at this minute, just a better fighter than where Mike Pyle is at. And I think it only takes one decent shot on the chin, on the top of the head, around the ear, and this guy will be on Dream Street, and you can take him out from there. So it's hard being kind of confident in somebody like Zach Otto, but when you watch the last few fights of Mike Pyle, you see a clear deterioration of his body condition, just his overall health. I'm going to pick Zach Otto via TKO in round number 2. Moving on to the Fox Sports 1 card, and we start off in the middleweight division with CB the Doberman Dollaway against Hector Lombard. This is a weird fight for me when I was watching just some fights back. I don't want to pick a certain guy, because I think he is a little bit past it, pretty much. And he is an older guy. But when I watch back the tape, I think that Hector Lombard has an opportunity here to win this fight. We'll start with CB Dollaway. The one kind of concerning thing with this, he was supposed to fight Francis Barbosa, UFC 203 in Cleveland, and something happened with the escalator, and it jarred, and there was a lot of fighters on that, and it jarred his back, and he says himself it's something he's gonna have to look out for the rest of his career. He has bad back problems. As a fighter, that is bad stuff to be dealing with, especially him being a wrestler, where he's going to have to use that kind of core strength, and just it's a lot to put on your body. And he's a guy that I think has been he hasn't looked good since Machida caught him with that body shot. That's when he was at his best, was before that fight, before Lyoto Machida, where he got that UFC main event. And since then, Michael Bisping just clearly outworked him, was the better fighter, and Nate Marquardt knocked this guy out in the second round. So coming off a win over Ed Herman via unanimous decision, where he used his kind of overall experience and his better takedown game to win that fight. Hector Lombard is a guy I'm really surprised that he's still in the UFC, and really surprised when I saw this matchup get put together, because I thought Hector was done, honestly. Coming off 4 fights, a 4-fight losing streak, and we all know he starts off very quick, looks very solid, but deteriorates extremely quick, and you find the right shots on this guy, you can put him down. Now, in that fight with Anthony Smith, which he lost via 3rd round TKO, he was looking good earlier on the first 2 rounds. I thought he could have possibly went up 2 rounds. Could have been 1-1, but I think I had him 2-0, and then got caught. Like I say with Mike Pyle, it takes one decent shot and you can put this guy down. Johnny Hendricks. Losing to Johnny Hendricks in 2017. I mean, Johnny Hendricks is a nothing fighter these days. He's really not a good fighter. Dan Henderson got caught in that one, and Neil Magny TKO'd this guy after starting off really well against him. Very athletic guy, very quick, but fades very quickly. I expect CB to maybe try and mix up and try and get takedowns. I don't think he will take down someone like Hector Lombard, because not many people do. He's such a short guy. You're going to have to really get in on him to take him down. So in that instance, I'm going to pick Hector Lombard by TKO. I think he catches CB rushing in and maybe catches him with an uppercut and puts him down. Can't say I'm overly confident. It's a fight I'll be staying well away from betting, DraftKings maybe. But I do think Hector Lombard can stop this guy. So ultimately I'm going to go Hector Lombard via TKO in very early round number 2. Moving on, bantamweight division. This is the fight that was supposed to happen in Brazil a few weeks back. John Dodson against Pedro Munhoz. The reason Pedro Munhoz, he missed weight, and then John Dodson just did not want to take the fight. There was a big hoo-ha with Pedro Munhoz. There was no hot water in the host hotel for the UFC that week. And I think there was a couple of other fighters actually missed weight. but that was his main reason for missing weight, and John Dodson just did not want to take the fight, and it's got rescheduled for this one here. I picked John Dodson in that fight a few weeks back. I'm not going to change my pick. I'm not going to really go too much into it. I think that Pedro just absorbs too many strikes. John Dodson really doesn't throw as much output as what he used to, but he still has those fast hands, he still has that power, and I think at some point in this fight he could catch the chin of Pedro Munhoz. Like I said, picked Dodson a few weeks ago. I don't see any difference in picking Pedro Munhoz just by watching the fights over again. I'm going to pick John Dodson. I think I will pick him. Do I pick him TKO? I'm going to pick him via decision. I think he will hurt Pedro, but Pedro is a warrior. He sticks around, and it's just an overall tough guy. So John Dodson via a unanimous decision there. Lightweight division, Beneil Dariush against Alexander Hernandez, the newcomer, coming in here with an 8-1 record. Went and watched a couple of his fights, just to get a gauge on him. Solid everywhere, but is a wrestler by trade. He uses his striking. He has a little bit of power, but he uses his striking and his kickboxing, especially his boxing, I should say, to get into wrestling scenarios where that really worked out on the regional scenes, where he just used kind of sloppy boxing to get in close to initiate takedowns and grappling situations into the clinch and so on, and took those guys down very easily, to be said. Now, I don't think you can do that against a guy like Beneil Dariush. He's fought some really elite guys. I think he's been taken down like 4 times in maybe 12 UFC fights, and he's stopped like 18 to 20 takedown attempts on himself. So this guy's got some really good takedown defense. In that case, it's hard to see where Alexander Hernandez really wins this fight. The veteran savviness of Beneil Dariush, the big fight experience he has, is going to count over a guy like Alexander Hernandez. To be honest with you, I like what I see from Hernandez. I think he's going to be a guy that, I think it's maybe a little bit early in his UFC tenure, but he got the opportunity and he jumped at it. You can't blame the guy for that. I think that he will win fights in the UFC. I like his skill set. I think if he progresses on the feet, his wrestling's always going to be there, and he's going to beat guys in the UFC lightweight division. I believe that, whether it's now or maybe in the future, if he gets caught and he maybe gets brought back. I like what I see from him. I think he can be a solid pro and win fights in the UFC. But Beneil Dariush for me is just a really solid fight. He's one of the guys, overall solid guys that I love watching. Big heavy leg kicks, really nice boxing, and he has some power behind that as well. Really good on the ground. He's just a solid pro. He's a really solid guy that I still think he can beat guys in the top 5, top 10 of that UFC division. I think he's ranked 12 or 13. But yeah, it's hard to pick Alexander Hernandez here. Long shot pick, maybe Hernandez can pull it out. Maybe Beneil Dariush underestimates him a little bit, but I don't believe Beneil's that kind of guy that's going to underestimate fighters. So I'm going to pick Beneil Dariush. I think once he figures out what Alexander Hernandez wants to do, he will ultimately change his game plan up and improvise and look to find a way to finish this fight. I think that's what he needs. He needs to get back on the finishing fights and just trying to finish the fights from there. So I am going to go Beneil Dariush submission. I think I'm going to go submission in early round number 3. I'm going to go with that one. So yeah, Dariush via sub, round number 3. Moving on to the main fight of the UFC prelims. Ashley Yoder faces off against the debuting MacKenzie Dern. Now, MacKenzie Dern's been garnering a lot of attention on the regional scenes. From the world of Jiu-Jitsu, she's won a lot of Jiu-Jitsu tournaments out there, a lot of medals. She won, I think, a couple of Abu Dhabi Cups as well. So she, ultimately, her skill set is going to be very based to her Jiu-Jitsu. But she has been trying to make advancements in her game with her striking. Still think her striking's got a long way to go. We saw that in her last fight in Invicta against Kalina Medeiros, which I thought the UFC did well, making her, putting her on that card to get the UFC fight fans kind of onto the radar of MacKenzie Dern. I've been on since her first fight. Then she faced Montana Stewart, where she caught her in a beautiful omoplata and she kind of manoeuvred herself into a rear naked choke. It was a nasty submission. Ultimately, she's, like I say, she's got a lot of work to do on her feet, and that's something that she's going to have to do to progress to be a good fighter. Nobody wants to go to the ground with this girl. She is very, very good on the ground. So obviously, if she's winning a lot of medals, a lot of jiu-jitsu matches out there, she's going to have an advantage over pretty much anybody in the UFC, I think, at this point. But yeah, a striking lot. It's a lot of looping shots. She has some power, but like I say, her ultimate goal is to get the fight to the ground and use that superior jiu-jitsu. Now, Ashley Yoder, 2-0 in the UFC, lost to Angela Hill. I think Justine Kish was the other loss. She bad fight IQ. I think she will rush in. I think she's the kind of girl that would go to the ground with MacKenzie Dern trying to prove a point, and will get caught through that. So that's kind of how I'm seeing going. She's not that good a fighter. This is clearly a set-up fight in the main event of the kind of prelims to get MacKenzie Dern out there. The UFC kind of know what they're doing. Doesn't mean that Ashley Yoder can't come in there and have the performance of her life, but I think she's pretty much close to being a 500 fighter. She loses this, she's 5-4. Her record's 5-4. So I'm not overly high on Ashley Yoder. I am pretty high. I am a fan actually of MacKenzie Dern. She garners a lot of shit on kind of social media for being a kind of like a pretty girl. People just instantly kind of take a dislike to her for some of that, which sucks a little bit. But I must admit, I like her. I have liked her for a long time. I'm hoping she can make the progressions in her striking that can equal up to her ground game. And yeah, so I think you guys can see where I'm going here. I'm pretty confident. She'll probably be my most confident picks. MacKenzie Dern, I'm going to pick her via submission. I think eventually the fight hits the ground and she finds a sub from there. So I'm going to go second round submission. In fact, I'm going to go a first round submission for MacKenzie Dern. I think they just start swinging, they get into a clinch, she gets a takedown, she gets a sub. That's kind of how I see that fight going. So confident pick there, MacKenzie Dern, sub in round number 1. Moving on to the main card, and this fight right here in the women's bantamweight division is one that I don't think I've watched. Like, I watch fights quite a lot, but I don't go back and watch them 2 or 3 times over. So both of these girls, it's just a really interesting matchup to me. Kat Zingano makes a return against Ketlen Vieira. Really interesting fight. We'll start off with Ketlen Vieira. If you go back and watch her fights, even on the amateur scene, the regional scene I should say, and through her UFC fights, clear progression. One of those fighters that makes progress in every single fight in some facet of her game. When she came in against Kelly Fashholtz, the one thing I didn't like, and which was a little bit worrying, especially in this matchup, is she got placed against the cage. Kelly Fashholtz did that. And I was expecting Kelly to come out and throw a lot of volume like she did in her UFC debut. I think it was against Lauren Murphy. She didn't really do that, but she did back Ketlen up enough to where her back was against the cage, where she can't do this in this match with Kat Zingano because that's what she's going to be looking to do. And she won that fight with Kelly Fashholtz very, very easily. She got dominant takedowns and pretty much blanketed her from there. There was a few iffy get back. The ref put them back to their feet a couple of times, which was a little bit iffy. I thought Ketlen was doing enough in those aspects to keep the fight on the mat. Second fight against Ashley Evans-Smith showed her striking. Her striking looked really good early on. Combinations, and she wasn't throwing 1 or 2 strikes, she was throwing 3 and 4, mixing up by going to the body, and she had clearly the faster hands and was clearly the bigger girl with the bigger power as well. She got takedowns on Ashley Evans-Smith. She was the wrestler. She really had no luck at all against Ketlen Vieira, and she got takedowns. She just dominated that fight, I thought, for the full 15 minutes. Took a couple of licks, but I thought her striking looked so improved from what I'd seen in the regional scene and her first UFC fight. In her third fight, we kind of spoke about this last week, Sarah McMahon, a really rough start in that fight, got taken down, got a couple of elbows which put a big knot on her head, and got pretty much dominated the way that Sarah McMahon does. She's the weirdest fighter, I think, in the UFC. She comes in, she dominates, she gets a takedown, she just blanketed her for 5 minutes of that first round, pretty much, or 4 minutes. Got got her with a nice trip, and I think, in fact, it was a single leg I think she got her down with. So got her down and proceeded to just kind of trying to get the crucifix, which she loves to do every fight. But Ketlen Vieira did well in her back to keep her in kind of like a guard. But Sarah McMahon, one of the things that she doesn't do is she doesn't advance position, which is something you have to do. Second round, she comes out and she puts Sarah McMahon against the cage, and then she proceeds to take down Sarah McMahon in that fight, and then took her down, and then Sarah McMahon does what Sarah McMahon loves to do, is just quit, look for the door. It's just interesting in this fight because I think personally Cat Zingano is the strongest fighter at 130 in the women's 135 pound division. I do. Some of the takedowns that she's got, some of the slams, I mean, from the belly to belly slam that she had on Juliana Pena to the kind of guillotine throw twice she did against Amanda Nunes. She's a really powerful girl. Her striking, I think, is terrible. I don't think her striking is that good at all. She can't fight long. She can't just stand there and throw shots. She literally rushes forward to throw shots to get into a clinch position, where the only good strikes she has, I think, are in the clinch. If she puts you against the cage or she catches you in a clinch, big elbows, big knees, like we kind of seen in the Miesha Tate fight. But she can be put on her back. There's no doubt about it, she can be put on her back. Miesha Tate did it. Juliana Pena, she taken down Juliana Pena more than what Juliana did, but she sweep position. But once she got Cat down there, the one thing I'm noticing from the Cat fight, there's the Pena fight to like the Tate fight, and especially the Nunes fight, is that kind of explosiveness is kind of gone a little bit, I think. But that was her first fight after a long time out. But she's went out for a long time. She's not fought since UFC 200. I thought that fight with Juliana Pena was close. I thought she clearly won round 1. I thought she won the first 2 minutes of round 2, then got her back taken, and then proceeded in the third round to get into a clinch and try and get a takedown. Pena got a beautiful trip, ended up in top position, and round out the rest of the fight from there. Kind of where I'm seeing this, there's a lot of love for Ketlen Vieira this week, and the odds were a little bit close, but a lot of people are betting her up now. Initially, my pick was Ketlen Vieira. Even like yesterday, it's 2:20 in the morning now, but people were messaging me. I had 4 separate people message me and say, "Who are you picking, Vieira or Zingano?" And I told them all I like Ketlen Vieira. I went back and watched all the fights in the UFC, and I kind of switched my pick a little bit. I think there's definitely another step up from Fashholtz, Ashley Evans-Smith, Sarah McMahon, for the simple fact that Cat Zingano just does not give up, and she is very, very strong. The one thing I'm worried about is just the layoff. I love the fact she's coming out of Alliance. They're on a little bit of a high at the minute. They really game plan very well. I like what I'm seeing from that. But to be honest with you, Cat Zingano really doesn't stick to a game plan. She just bulldozes in and looks to take you out and take you down. She has very, very, very big top position. She's very dominant up there. But if you can sweep her and put her on her back, like Amanda Nunes did, you can hurt this girl. But she can break you, and that's kind of what I'm thinking here. If she can push Ketlen Vieira up there, I think she definitely gets takedowns. I can see Ketlen Vieira also getting takedowns. So I think this is a fight that's going to garner a lot of takedowns, a lot of sweeps. If Cat Zingano shows up like she did, kind of like I seen in the Amanda Nunes fight, now that's a long ass time ago, by the way, and she's been out a long time, she hasn't fought much. If she shows up like she did then, I think she wins the fight. But I also see Ketlen Vieira getting this, getting takedowns as well. I just think it's can Cat Zingano really keep that going and establish that dominant top position where she's got heavy pressure, big elbows, big strikes. I'm not sure. So in my case, it's a dog or pass fight for me. And upon the odds, from what I've seen, Cat Zingano is the underdog. So it's another one of those fights where Ketlen Vieira, it's another step up. She has to show me if she can get by the strong wrestler type. I think she definitely, if I was Ketlen Vieira, I would try and establish a striking game here. I think if she established a striking game and does what she did against Ashley Evans-Smith, she could hurt Cat Zingano. but Kat just rushes forward. It's one of these fights is just going to be rushing at each other, especially Kat looking to get this fight to the ground, and from there, I think she has a slight advantage, but it's hard to tell, honestly. So for me, I'm going to go Kat Zingano. I'm a little bit surprised I actually changed that because I've been very, very kind of heavy on Ketlen Vieira. I've been telling other people, but if you're watching, I literally changed my pick in the last 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours maybe, watching the fights back over. I need to see a little bit more from Ketlen Vieira in this one, but it's all depending on what Kat Zingano shows up for me. So I'm going to pick Kat Zingano via decision. I think Ketlen's very, very tough, but if Kat Zingano can get that top position, I think she can submit her. I think she can ground and pound her. She is one of those girls you have to keep an eye out. She's very pressure. I love her pressure on the bottom, but the pick's going to be Kat Zingano there via I'm going to go decision because Ketlen Vieira is very tough. Heavyweight division, Stefan Struve against Andrei Arlovski. Not a fight I'm overly fond of. Surprised that Andrei Arlovski, I think I said this probably in my last video as well, that he's still around the UFC, but came out with a win against Junior Albini. Shocked a lot of people, shocked me. Junior Albini, I thought, just fought a really bad fight, but I thought that Andrei Arlovski actually fought a really good fight. I thought he stayed calm, stayed composed, used that experience. I think that Junior Albini was like the rabbit in the headlights kind of scenario where he was in there a clear step up against a guy that's been around for the longest time and has did everything in the sport, had epic fights, won belts, moved to a new gym, American Top Team, so that maybe reinvigorated him a little bit. And now Andrei's moved on to face Stefan Struve here. He's coming off a pretty devastating loss in his home country by Alexander Volkov, where Alexander Volkov just really smashed him up for the majority of that fight, got some takedowns on him, and just clearly out struck him and just beat him everywhere. Stefan Struve, I think, he's a young guy, he's still like 30 years old, which is very young for the heavyweight division, but he's taken a lot of damage, and he has health problems as well, or he's had health problems. For a guy like 30 to take that much damage and health problems, it's quite scary. I just think, I'm surprised I'm picking Andrei Arlovski in 2018 to win a UFC fight. I can't say I'm overly confident in Stefan Struve, so for me, I'm going to pick Andrei Arlovski. I think it'll be a little bit of a kind of sparring match to start off with. Andrei trying to get inside that long reach of what Stefan Struve has. Just has to be careful if it goes to the ground, because Stefan has a lot of tools on the ground. He's very long and he can catch you with stuff. I want to know what Stefan Struve's kind of game plan for this. Is he going to strike with Arlovski? Because I think Arlovski is the bigger hitter. Still has more pop in his punches, but it's a fight I'm not confident in. It's probably going to be a least confident pick one here, but I do kind of like Andrei Arlovski to land the more shots and be the more powerful guy and win the fight from there. So Andrei Arlovski, I'm going to go TKO round number 2. Another interesting fight, Sugar Sean O'Malley against Andrei Soukhamthath. This was another fight where initially I heard this fight got put together and I made a pretty quick judgment of who I was going to pick, and I've changed my pick since then. This match got announced weeks back, obviously, months back, and I was on Andrei Soukhamthath originally, but my pick for this fight will be Sean O'Malley. Really, really happy for Andrei to win his fight last time out against Luke Sanders. It was a pretty close opening scenario with that fight. It was really the first segment of that fight is what I'm trying to say. It was very close. There wasn't much between them, but then that big power shot of Andrei landed in the second round and put Luke Sanders down. It was a brutal knockout. Really happy for him. Signed a new UFC contract as well. He was coming off 2 close split decision losses to Alejandro Perez and Albert Morales. So I was really happy to see him get that UFC win. A really athletic, tough, good fighter. I think he's a really good fighter, and I think this is another step up for Sean O'Malley here. Coming off that win over Terrion Ware, really impressed with his striking, I must admit. The one thing that I do think he needs to rein back a little bit is just how much he throws in his shots. He needs to just pick his shots and just be confident in his shots. Don't throw power into everything. I think if he does that, he can mix up his like varying powers and varying shots. He can hurt guys. Love his angles. He throws off angles beautifully, really fast, and it's just, I think he's a really solid fighter who came through a tough patch in that fight against Terry, who's a boxer, was in his face, hit him with some big shots. I still think his striking defense has got a lot to live up to, and I just like what I saw. He showed a bit of grit when the cards were down in that fight a little. He went in there and he just showed that. Sorry, someone's signing up there. There we go. He showed that he has. He can overcome a little bit of adversity in that fight. Is what I'm trying to say. Like I said, I really like his striking. I really like his angles. I think he has power. He needs to use it correctly though. But he has to keep that chin tucked. He has to keep his hands up, because Soukhamthath, like we're saying, it takes one big shot. Now Luke Sanders comes from the lab as well, so he's probably gonna. I'd be surprised if he didn't pass on the fight from like some of the aspects of what Soukhamthath throws, some of the movements and so on, to Sean O'Malley. I'd see him helping him out quite a lot through camp for this one here. And I just think that Andrei Soukhamthath, I was kind of noted that from a friend of mine here, that Andrei Soukhamthath doesn't win too many fights once it goes to decision. He's like 1-5, which is a little bit interesting. I think if Sean O'Malley starts off really, really quick and wins a round or two, or at least the first round, I think he gains the confidence from that and goes on to win the fight. So I'm picking Sean O'Malley to win via decision. I think it could be a close one, it could be a split decision. I maybe see Andrei winning at least a round there. So Sean O'Malley via unanimous decision victory. Co-main event of the night, unbelievable fight. Frankie the Answer Edgar against Brian T-City Ortega. Another fight I did a lot. I watched a lot of fights on these guys. I watched all of Brian Ortega's fights in the UFC. All of his fights, some of his fights, from the regionals, from his old days just outside in the regionals. I think it was LFA, I think it was the RFA back then, unbelievable fight. Just pissed it's not 5 rounds. I think over 5 rounds, this fight would be a lot closer. Let's start off with Brian Ortega. That submission of Cub Swanson is one of my favourite moments I think I've had in a few years. Unbelievable. Like, just to go from one submission, we'll start off in the first round. Let's start off in the first. He was getting picked apart a little bit. Cub was outlanding him fairly decently, and hitting him with some power shots. In the second round, towards the end of the first round, I should say, he decided, right, I'm going to try and get this into the clinch, where he decided to get a takedown from there. Instantly caught a submission on Cub Swanson, and just like Sarah McMahon last week, the utter panic in his face at the choke this guy can put on you was scary. It was like, you if you go back and watch it, just pause it and you'll see like Cub Swanson literally shitting his pants, had no idea what to do, got very lucky. If there was 5-10 seconds left in that first round, T-City was going to take him out. Second round, Brian Ortega comes out very aggressive, throws some nice strikes, some nice leg kicks, gets him against the cage, and then decides to jump on a guillotine. Loses it, and then, while on the guy, readjusts his hands and gets the choke, and Cub Swanson is like pawing, tapping, and this guy's choke and his squeeze must be unbelievable. So clear, probably one of the best jiu-jitsu guys we have in the UFC. I'm going to put this out there. I think he's the best jiu-jitsu guy out there. I think for just pure submissions, I think he's probably ahead of Maya and Jacare. That's quite a big statement on my part, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. But I like what I see from Brian Ortega. I think his striking has progressed a long way. I think he's very calculated with his striking. He's quite accurate, picks his shots really well, and is very athletic and can come out with flying knees like we've seen in the past. Just a really solid fight. He's actually one of the best fighters that I've kind of went back and watched tape on in the last few years, does get taken down really easily. One of the fights I really enjoyed and I forgot about was his fight. I think it was his second fight in the UFC. Yeah, it was against Thiago Tavares. Got taken down easily there in that fight, 67 times. But on his back, he doesn't settle. He moves position. He finds sweeps against really good guys. Tavares is very good in the ground, but also he cut Tavares up bad. He had, I think by into round 3, he had 4 cuts on his left side of his face, I believe, and he looked like he was getting beat up. That fight was close. I think if it went to a third, went to the cards, I think that Tavares might have maybe got him there, but that killer instinct in the third round, once he's got you hurt, he goes for the kill. And even if he's down, I thought in the Moicano fight he was down. The mistake that Moicano made in that fight is the fact he shot in with his head straight and never pivoted. Saying that, he didn't really have that much time to pivot. Frankie Edgar, I would expect, being a veteran, a big veteran of the game and a really good ground guy himself and being a good wrestler, he knows he can't leave his head in that position for a guillotine, because if he does it for the slightest second, Brian Ortega has the squeeze and the hold. He's going to make you tap out. I've no doubt about it whatsoever. So that's where, if you go back and watch the Yair Rodriguez fight, he has some takedowns. I think he knew that Rodriguez was not going to catch him in that kind of scenario in guillotines. You can see he leaves his head in there and Rodriguez attempts to go for it, and then he kind of gets him down and he breaks it from there. Ortega, if he gets the slightest opportunity to get that neck, he's going to take it and run with it, and he's going to tap you out if you give him the opportunity. I don't see Frankie Edgar give him that opportunity. On the feet, I think Frankie's really light on his feet, really good boxing, really good angles, really good footwork, good speed. Ortega, I think, can land some shots on him, but I do think he will take some shots. I see Frankie Edgar repeating takedowns and not getting caught. I do see Brian Ortega making his way back to his feet and winning his fight from there. No, not winning the fight from there, but getting back to his feet and getting back to a striking position. But I do see Frankie Edgar getting takedowns, is what I'm trying to say, and doing that over 3 rounds. I can see him doing that, maybe keeping Ortega down there, kind of what Tavares did, but he caught Tavares in sweeps and got into positions as well, so good positions as well. I like Frankie Edgar. Like I say, over 5 rounds, I think Ortega might have had a better chance. I think in 3 condensed rounds of 5 minutes, sorry, I think that Frankie Edgar will win a decision, but it's close, man. He needs to be careful, because if he leaves anything out there, T-City is going to catch him. I've seen people out there saying as soon as this fight hits the ground, it's over, Ortega's going to catch him. Could happen. I see the experience of Frankie Edgar really helping him out here and winning a decision victory. So Frankie Edgar via unanimous decision victory for me there. And the main event of the night, co-main event of the night, Cris Cyborg against Yana Kunitskaya. Honestly, not overly bothered about this fight. I think that Cris Cyborg should win. I think what I liked in the Holly Holm fight was she went deep into that fight, 5 rounds. Her power carried through. She stayed composed in some aspects of that fight. And she is probably the biggest hit in that division. So somebody like Yana Kunitskaya has never faced someone like her. She was a former Invicta champion, lost to Tonya Evinger, comes from Jackson Wink, so she's obviously going to have Holly Holm helping her in this fight here, passing on her experience of when they fought back in December. I just think that Cris Cyborg, in many aspects of this, in probably every aspect of this fight, is the better fighter, better ground game. Kunitskaya, I think, is going to want to fight at distance, try and use leg kicks and so on. I just think that Cris Cyborg's going to bully this girl. It's a nothing fight to me. It's not a fight that I really want to be staying up till 6 a.m. to watch. And it might be after the Edgar Ortega fight, I might just go to bed and catch that other one when I wake up. Probably not. Probably talking out my backside there. I'll probably end up watching it for as long as it lasts. But I'm going to ultimately pick Cris Cyborg to win. I'm going to actually go round. Is she patient? I'm going to go round. I'm going to go round 1 TKO for Cris Cyborg. I think she comes at this girl, and I think she can break her very, very quickly. One decent strike is all it takes, and she'll put Yana Kunitskaya down. So Cris Cyborg defends her belt, first round TKO victory there. So that is my picks for UFC 222. We have a break, which I'm actually looking forward to. It's been quite a hard start to the year. There's been card week after week from when we first got the first event in St. Louis. So I'm looking forward to a week off, just chill, and then probably this time next week I will start to do tape for UFC London, Verdun versus Volkov. So great start to the year with subscribers. You guys are awesome, so I appreciate you so much. Enjoy this card when it comes around this Saturday. I'll be back obviously for UFC London in about a couple of weeks time around this point. Keep your eye out for that, and until then, enjoy the fight card, and good luck with your bets and everything. All the best.